we journey through life, we get a chance to meet a whole lot of people, different sets of people. Some irritating, some annoying, provocative, challenging, inspiring, motivating, and some who change the course of your life forever. I have been wanting to do this video for quite a long time, but I did not know how to go about it. But today, I made up my mind that it is highest time that I do. I want to share with you the 6 powerful lessons that I learned from Toni Morrison, a phenomenally outstanding Black woman of substance, of wisdom, a woman who inspires and changes lives across the globe, including mine. In 2006, I had the unique opportunity, the unique chance to meet Toni Morrison, one of the greatest Black authors of our time, the first Black woman ever to receive the Nobel Prize laureate for literature, and the author of over 50 books, a woman that we all know to have inspired so many people, a woman who had a voice, not just through her writings, but through many speeches, her lectures in universities, the people she met, and how she led her life. Even though I met Toni Morrison just for one evening and one morning, just like a couple of hours, this woman changed the course of my life forever. Now you're asking yourself, what exactly happened? Where did they meet? Well, that was in 2006. It's over 10 years ago. And yet the memory is as if it was yesterday. In 2006, Austria was celebrating 250 years of Mozart. And there was a big New Crown Hope Festival masterminded by Peter Sellers, one of the amazing creative minds that I have met in the course of my life. So Peter and I met when he was in Vienna to curate this New Crown Hope Festival in 2006. He met a whole lot of people, but I remember we met in my office. One of the funniest things that happened is that when Peter and his team walked into my little office in the 9th district of Vienna, I looked around and said, but where is Peter Sellers? Peter is a very small person with such a great mind, great achievement, and a vision that is bigger than I can even describe. In my conversation with Peter, he mentioned that he was friends with Toni Morrison. And immediately I said, Peter, can you bring Toni Morrison to Vienna? Peter said to me, Beatrice, Toni is very busy and a little bit tired at the moment. And I said, Peter, if you can, please bring Toni. Now, I don't know whether that had any influence on Peter's decisions or planning, but a couple of months down the line, Gelinda Ehrenreich, who was Peter's personal PA during the New Crown Hope Festival in Vienna, called me and said, Beatrice, Peter asked me to ask you if you will do a laudatio for Toni Morrison during the New Crown Hope Festival in Vienna. And I was like, there, Toni Morrison? Are you kidding me? Toni Morrison is coming to town and Peter has asked me to do a laudatio. You bet I will. I was so excited. And mind you, in that very moment, I did not even know what a laudatio was, least of all, how I was going to do it. I just knew if Toni Morrison is coming to town and I got this chance, I'm definitely taking it. And so I took the chance. I don't want to tell you what it took for me to prepare my laudatio. What I will tell you is that I did not read that laudatio. After writing so many different versions and throwing them away, I decided I was just going to take a leap of faith, go on stage and do a laudatio my own way. Toni Morrison's book, The Blower's Eyes, was selected by the City Council of Vienna in its annual program called One Book, One City. So it was printed and distributed in the city. And Toni was invited to host a series of press conferences, a series of meetings with some of the dignitaries and the most important people in the city of Vienna. And in the evening, in the Gartenbau Kino, there was a gala in honor of Toni Morrison. During the day, my brother Simon Inu and myself tried to get into some of the press conferences to just meet Toni Morrison, but we were not given the chance. And so I knew that my chance was going to be in the evening when I have to read a laudatio for her. That evening, I went to the Gartenbau Kino, dressed up and ready to take my chance, to utilize the opportunity as much as I could. At that time, there was so much pain, so much hurting, so much racism, so much despair in the Black community in Vienna. And I knew this was my golden opportunity to address these issues in front of all the political leaders of Austria who were gathered in the Gartenbau Kino that evening to celebrate Toni Morrison. When it was my turn and I was called on stage, I moved on, determined, but inside of me, I was nervous. Outside of me, I was sweating and I was shivering like a Christmas goat ready to be killed. But I knew this was my golden opportunity. So I went on stage, I made my speech, I talked about the situation of Black people in Austria. I talked about there's so much racism that was going on. I presented the issues that we faced as a community. And at the end of that speech, I had a list of recommendations that I handed over to the mayor of Vienna from the stage. Still sweating like a Christmas goat. When I finished my speech, Toni Morrison demonstratively stood up and clapped for me and applauded my presentation. Goodness gracious, this was a moment that you never forget in your life. Even though some of the Vienna politicians left the room because they thought that was not a laudatio, even though the Vienna newspapers and media boycotted my speech the next morning, I had made an impact on Toni Morrison. And I had presented the issues that were affecting us as a Black community in Austria. And that was what mattered to me in that moment. After the gala dinner, we were all called on stage. I stood next to Toni Morrison and she gave me this big hug and said, "Baby girl, you did well. I loved your speech. I love your courage." When she whispered these words in my ears, I was like, I am in heaven right now. Anything can happen. Toni Morrison is not just here. She's hugging me and telling me that I did well. This is a moment that I treasure forever, and I will keep treasuring it as long as I live. So after that, she invited me to go for dinner with her. That was my very private dinner date with Toni Morrison in the Vienna Museumsquartier. Jeez, this was my moment. I sat next to this wonderful woman, this amazing woman that we all have been wanting to meet but did not get given the chance. There was I, sitting exclusively next to her and sharing a meal and talking and laughing as if we were friends, as if she was my grandmother. It was such a wonderful moment. I remember in our conversation, I just said like, "Toni, I know you have a very busy agenda, but there are a few Black women in town who will give their last penny just to meet you before you leave." And she said, "Well, how about we meet them? How many are they?" I said, 10. She said, "Bring 10, not 11. I said, "I promise." I couldn't believe my ears. Not only was I sitting and having dinner with her, she was actually giving us more time for some of the women, the Black women in town, who were part of the Black women's community that I had just created, to meet her personally the next morning. So to keep the story short, the next morning I brought in my 10 women. And among the 10 women was one addition, my brother Simon. And when we walked into Toni Morrison's hotel room, the first thing she said was, "There is a man, and there are 11, not 10. And my brother Simon, being as eloquent as he is, a journalist, of course, he said, "I am the journalist. I'm here to document." And thanks to my brother Simon, we have an audio video of the conversation that we had with Toni Morrison. And that meeting with her started with us rearranging her hotel suite. We pulled the chairs and the cushions aside so we could create a circle. It so much reminded me of the evenings that we spent with my grandmother when she was still alive, and may her soul rest in peace. We used to sit around a circle in her room, in her house, and tell stories in the evenings and sometimes during the day. And so this is exactly what we did with Toni Morrison. And this was like being back home, even though I was still in the hostile environment of Vienna. The conversation that was meant to last for 30 minutes lasted for 90 minutes. And if you listen to our conversation, we were sharing ideas, we were seeking for advice, we were speaking out, we were asking for permission, we were looking for inspiration, for motivation, and we were looking for wisdom. And Toni Morrison gave it all to us. She answered to every one of our questions, each one of us. She gave us advice. She took us back to the US during her time and shared some of her experiences, some of the experiences of African Americans, which were similar to the situations that we were experiencing in Austria. And amidst that, she gave us names and addresses of people that we could contact so that we could coordinate some activities with them. Some people from which we could get support to run the organizations that we were, to run the Black community, to organize ourselves, and to be able to do some of the things that we wanted to do, but lack the courage or lack the inspiration or the support. At the end of the conversation, we were filled with wisdom, inspiration, new contacts, and Toni promised us, talk to them, and if you don't get to them, talk to me, and I will make sure that I get them to talk to you in Vienna, because it is so important that you connect with them, because you are fighting the same cause, and it is so crucial that you connect so you can support each other. This is just a little bit of how much I got from just meeting and sharing with Toni Morrison. There are 6 key lessons that I learned from this meeting with Toni Morrison that changed the course of my life forever. That make me forever thankful to her for having created the time, allowed us to meet her and to share with us. I still feel very emotional when I think about this. So one of the biggest lessons that I learned was to own my time, own your time. Toni Morrison had a very big agenda when she came to Vienna. Her time was fully planned. In spite of the fact that she had that very tight agenda, she was able to make time, not just to have dinner with me. She made time the next morning, putting aside other appointments just to meet this group of Black women in Austria. This meant the world to all of us, and to me particularly. There are no words to say thank you for this. And the lesson I learned is, when you have priorities in life, you have to own your time. You decide what you want to do with your time. You decide with whom you want to spend your time. You know, Mandela said that the most limited resource that we have in life is our time. When it is over, you can't ask for more. Toni Morrison gave us 3 hours of her time, and this was life-changing, not just for me, but to all the women who had a chance to meet her in Vienna. The second lesson that I learned from Toni was to be articulated. Be articulated about your goals, about your wishes. Be articulated about what you want, about where you want to go to, about the things that you need, about the kind of support that you need, and about what you want to achieve. You know, during our conversation, I expressed to Toni Morrison that I have been wanting to set up the International Center for Black Women's Perspectives. And above all, I wanted to convene the first Black European Women's Congress. What she said to me was life-changing. She said, what are you waiting for? Go for it, do it. If there is something that you want to do, don't wait for anybody to do it for you. You've got to do it yourself. As Black people, we have to set up our own organizations, we set up our own businesses, we train our own lawyers, we start our own schools. We got to do this by ourselves. Go ahead and set up the Black European Women's Center, convene the Black European Women's Congress, and go beyond that. It is your life. In 2006, I launched the International Center for Black Women's Perspectives. In 2007, I convened the first Black European Women's Congress, which took place in Vienna. It brought together over 120 women from 18 EU member states. It was the first time that Black women were meeting in this scope in Austria. And we ended that 3-day conference with the Declaration of Black European Women. And this declaration spelled out the way we wanted to be perceived, included, and how we wanted to participate in all fields of life in Europe. In 2009, we officially launched the first Black European Women's Council in the European Parliament. It was an umbrella organization of Black women in Europe, Black European women. There is a video on YouTube on the birth of the Black European Women's Council. You can find it on YouTube. But the most important thing here was that for the first time, we came up with a definition of Black people in Europe. We called ourselves Black European women. Even though this definition was very controversial at the time, I am very happy today to see that this definition is currently being used in most of the European documents, in the documents of the European Parliament and the Commission, and it all goes back to this meeting with Toni Morrison and the permission, the power, the courage, the inspiration, the motivation that she gave me to launch those activities. The third lesson that I learned from Toni Morrison is share generously. You know, Maya Angelou said, when you learn, you teach. When you know, you share. Toni Morrison came to Vienna with a suitcase full of knowledge, of wisdom, of experiences, and of valuable advice that she has accumulated over the years. In spite of the tight schedule, she found the time to open that suitcase and to share. And just by sharing, she encouraged us to go ahead and do the things that we wanted to do and to become assertive, respectable, articulated Black women in Europe in a space that was and is still very limiting. This is the reason why I am sharing these lessons that I learned from her with you. I'm hoping that when you listen to this video, you pick up a few things that will change your life, just like being in the presence of Toni Morrison changed the course of my life forever. The fourth lesson that I learned from Toni Morrison is you got to do it by yourself. And the best time to start is now. When I did my speech in the Garten Baukino in Vienna, I did not expect that I would spend the evening with Toni Morrison. And least of all did I expect that the next morning I will be leading a group of 10 Black women to meet her and to share 90 valuable minutes with her, sharing information and having that wisdom-bearing grandmother whom we so much needed to give us the courage to face the adversities that we had in Austria. I got started by expressing my wish to have her in Vienna. And through some miracles, she was in Vienna. And when I was asked to do the laudatio for her, I immediately said yes, without even thinking about what it will take, how it was going to be, and what impact or consequences it was going to have. I just knew I had to do it. All the things that happened thereafter, they had to do with that getting started. I got started, and she gave us all that we needed, all the permission that we needed, the wisdom that we needed in order to leap even further. So she said, if you want to do something, do it right now. I got started and launched the International Center for Black Women's Perspective. A year later, convening the first Black European Women's Congress, and another year officially launching the Black European Women's Council in the European Commission. It was a very historical moment. We have Congress people from the US attending this launch in Brussels. For the first time in history, we Black women sat in the conference room of the European Commission. We shared the table with representatives of the different entities of the European Parliament and Commission. And this was with the support of the European Commissioner. It was history that we made, all because of the permission that Toni Morrison gave me when I had the chance to meet her one moment. She gave me the permission to get started. And once I got started, I became unstoppable. And that is still the course that I am following until today. The fifth lesson that I learned from Toni was seize the moment. Seize the moment because it may never come again. So I seized my moment by doing that laudatio, taking all the risk to do it wrongly. I seized the opportunity by addressing the mayor and putting in the recommendations from the Black community. I seized the moment by asking her if she could receive other Black women the next moment. And that was the starting point for so many things that happened in my life and in the life of people that I was able to serve in Europe, and the things that I'm still doing today, and the people that I'm still serving today, even though I'm no longer in Austria. The sixth lesson that I learned from Toni Morrison had to do with one of my favorite quotes from her. It says, if there is a book that you want to read and you can't find it, write it. We have been so used to complaining that things are not being done for us. But the moment Toni Morrison pronounced these words to me, I knew I was going to take action. The first part of the action that I took was designing an agenda for Black women in Europe. And the second part is what I'm in now. And it's something that I'm so passionate about that I don't even realize that I'm doing it. It's writing books. Yes, Toni, I am writing books. There were so many books that I wanted to read, so many books that I wanted to read for my children, and I did not find them. And I took your advice seriously. On the 19th of December 2016, I decided to start writing the books that I should have been writing a long time ago. I'm very proud to tell you, wherever you are right now, that I have written 21 books within 4 years, and I am working on 6 additional books in this very moment that I'm doing this video. You are now resting in the land of our ancestors. I'm here to tell you, Toni, that not only am I writing and publishing books just like you did, I know you launched your publishing companies because you wanted the voice of the people who were fighting for the liberation of Black people in America to be documented and published. And so this is exactly what I'm doing here. And I'm proud to tell you that I'm running master classes for first-time writers, some of them kids, and that our very youngest author is just 8 years old. I am helping them to write their books, publishing these books, stepping into your big shoes just to say, we need to tell our stories. The Black stories need to be told. Our history, we need to claim it, we need to write it, we need to own it, we need to tell it, and we need to pass it on to the next generation, just like you did, for having inspired me, for having given me that permission, for having filled me with all the courage that I needed from our meeting in Vienna to do all this work. I say thank you. And so therefore, I thought I should do this video because I thought sharing it, just like you shared with me, may encourage and empower some person, someone, somewhere in their little corner to start doing things just like you empowered me to start doing. In this moment, Toni Morrison, you have left us. You are in the land of our ancestors. May they take great care of you. May you find recognition from our ancestors just like we have for you. May you rest in perfect peace while we stay here and flagship your legacy as much as we can so we can hand it over to the next generation when our turn comes for us to leave. Thank you so very much. Amazingly phenomenal woman of African descent. I respect you. I celebrate you. I honor you. I feel very lucky to have met you. Let me share with you some of my anecdotes with Toni Morrison. When we had dinner together in the Museums Quartier in Vienna after the gala that was thrown in her honor in the Gartenbau Kino in 2006, Toni had her meals. And then she said to the waitress, please give me a decadent cake. So the waitress went and brought a slice of the famous Vienna Sachertorte. The Sachertorte is the cake of all the cakes, is the royal cake in Austria. So Toni tasted her Sachertorte and said, I said I wanted a decadent cake. And so the waitress went back and brought Apfelstrudel. Apfelstrudel is another Viennese specialty. Toni tasted and said no. I said I want a decadent cake. So the waitress came with some Schlagober. Schlagober is cream. Schlagober is the Austrian cream. So she added the cream on Toni's piece of the Sachertorte. It was still not decadent enough. And Toni said, please, I want a decadent, real decadent cake. The waitress had to add some more cream and some more chocolate. She tasted it and said, now we're talking. This is what I call a decadent cake. And, it was such a great moment. And I thought to myself, this is a woman of substance. She can ask for what she wants. This is just Toni Morrison. And I said to myself, when I grow up, I want to be just like her. I want to sit somewhere and ask for my real decadent cake, just like Toni Morrison did. The second anecdote that made me respect this woman is during the gala night to honor her in the Gartenbau Kino, all the Viennese politicians were around from all the political parties. Everyone who has a name in Vienna was in that room. And while the speeches were being made on stage, Mr. Heupel, our mayor, fell asleep. He must have had a very long day. He's a very busy mayor, and so he must have had a very long week. And while the speeches were going on, he fell asleep, and Toni Morrison noticed it. So when Toni went on stage and was having a conversation with Peter Sellers, Peter asked a question, and Toni noticed that the mayor was dozing off again. She said, Peter, as I was saying before to our mayor, oh, he's sleeping. And as if nothing happened, Toni just continued her conversation. And the whole room was like in turmoil. People looked at each other, people laughed. The councillor who was sitting next to the mayor hit him, and the mayor woke up and adjusted his tie and pretended as if there was nothing. And Toni just carried on with her conversation on stage with Peter. And I was like, oh yes, this is what it means to be a powerful woman, an influential woman. This is what it means to be a fearlessly, amazingly outstanding woman. This is what it means to be Toni Morrison. And you could say and do anything, and nothing will happen. So I just thought I should share this with you because it really made me feel the power of who this woman truly was and will remain in history. I am so happy that I was able to share this with you. It is my way of paying tribute to a woman who changed the course of my life forever. And by so doing, changing the life of the people, young and old, men and women, that I have the privilege to touch as I journey through life. May we all be inspired. May we all live to uplift and celebrate the legacy of the amazingly phenomenal, outstanding